start our exploration of Old World America looking at one of its most famous cities, being San Francisco. So the official narrative on San Francisco is that pre-1769 the region was inhabited by the Ohlone people for thousands of years, we're told. And then in 1769, Gaspar de Portola expedition first discovers the San Francisco Bay. So the San Francisco Bay was supposedly first discovered in the late 18th century. And then from there it changes hands between being a Spanish settlement to then being under Mexican rule, all the way up to 1846, where the US captures what is then known as Yerba Buena during the Mexican-American War. And then in 47, Yerba Buena is then renamed San Francisco. And then coincidentally, just as the US captures or recaptures this place, in 1848 to 1850, the California Gold Rush happens, and it leads to a population boom, transforming San Francisco into a major city. So a few things that I just want to look at prior to doing a little bit more of a further deep dive. This is the old map here in 1669, so late 17th century, of the Sanson Mariette Amerique Septentrional. Don't know if that's how you say it, but they always show California to be an island, which is very interesting. And this is something that you also find in some of the 19th century occult literature, Madame Blavatsky specifically, when she talks about the 7 root races, and she talks about how California was once an island and it will become an island once again, and it will actually give birth to the next root race. But then it has a lot of myth and lore surrounding the Isle of California with its queen, supposed queen Khalifa, and her Amazonian army. And then we have this whole, so we see like America's like mapped out from the east, and then we have this whole section here in the west and midwest, which would have been where this supposed Russian horde would have occupied. But what we see on this map, and this isn't where San Francisco is, but we do see that there is a San Francisco noted. And this is, I believe, my geography of America isn't the best, but I believe this would be like the Big Sur area of California, and then this would be the California Bay, and we have San Francisco right here. I believe San Francisco would be more so up here. The scale is a little bit off on this map, but maybe this was a San Francisco that was known about. Maybe this was it and it's just displaced. And there's a lot of discussion and evidence surrounding the idea that Sir Francis Drake actually discovered San Francisco. Sir Francis Drake on his travels in the 16th century, and maybe it was named after him. But I just want to show you this picture here that we have as the oldest photo of San Francisco in 1850, and what we see here is a fully built out city. We see fully built out. You'd expect it to be, wooden huts. You'd expect it to be Wild Wild West. The people that were going out there were people that were wanting to mine gold, chasing the gold rush. They wasn't, laborers capable of. Where are they getting all these bricks from? Like, look at these windows. The windows haven't even been fitted, or they've been removed. But this looks like an old building. This looks like an old city. 1850. Supposedly, in 1848, there was only 1,000 people inhabiting this place, but within 2 years, they built it out into what we see here. This building out back here. And then we see in 1856, we see, this is what I expect it to look like this, all wooden shacks, like single 2-story floor buildings. I don't expect to see buildings like this, with columns. Like look at these columns. I want to know what these are on the pediments here. What sort of symbology is on display? But you don't expect to see these type of buildings. Again, it's like mud flooded as well here. You can see like they got some windows popping out of the ground. what is this building doing here within 6 years of people just first moving here? You should be focusing on developing a sustainable community through agriculture, through, you know, just protecting yourself from bandits and Indians, natives I should say. Not building this, not focusing on building buildings like this. Where are you getting the skilled labor for this, the materials for this? And then another thing that I raised my eyebrow is that the California gold rush we see here, this was the gold mining region, with this region here, this orange region, being where the mother lode, quote unquote, was to be found. And here is San Francisco. Now San Francisco is about 200 plus miles away from this area, so we're told that San Francisco experienced a population boom because of the gold rush. But if you were participating in the gold rush, why would you want to be positioned 200 miles away? 200 miles away, where you have to lug all of your gold through the wild west without the infrastructure in place, no road networks, no railways in place to be able to get you back to San Francisco, which is on the coast here. It seems completely impractical and dangerous. Why would you not prefer to live like literally at the mine itself? Like, you'd want to live like right around here. Sacramento would be a way better town to choose. And you look at the population of Sacramento during this time frame and over the spanning years, and it didn't boom nowhere near as much as San Francisco. And that does raise an eyebrow to me. Why would you do that? Why would you put your life at risk to travel 200 miles back? 200 miles, they didn't have cars, it was like, that would have been a few days plus of travel to get to the gold mine, to do your work, and then you have to go all the way back. Someone please make sense of that to me. Maybe I don't know the full story. I don't even need to know the full story. I look at this and I know it's bullshit. And then this makes it even more bullshit when you see this. So, between 1849 and 1851, San Francisco got burned down to the ground 6 times. 6 times in the space of 2 years, guys. So the first fire, December 24th, 1849. 50 buildings get burnt down, $40 million worth of damage. Okay. So less than 6 months after, boom, a second fire happens. 300 buildings this time, $160 million worth of damage. So these figures here are adjusted to inflation of what the value would be in today's money. Third fire, so a month after, another fire, 150 buildings, $200 million worth of damage. And this is the official story of San Francisco, guys. I'm not making this up. And then a few months after, a fourth fire happens. 200 buildings, $20 million worth of damage. Then, about 8 months after or so, we have a fifth fire in May 4th, 15th. So May 4th on 1850, and in exactly a year to the day, to commemorate such a fire, we have a fifth fire. 18 city blocks, not just any fire, but the most damaging fire of all. 1,500 buildings, $480 million worth of damage. And then again, a month after, just like it was a month after again, from before, the previous year, 500 buildings go down, 14 city blocks, $120 million in damage. All within 2 years, total damages caused at $1.02 billion. Now, someone please explain to me how a city that is a brand new city in 1848, that had only 1,000 people living there in 1848, in the space of 2 years, whilst all of these fires start to kick off, not only can you have a civilization or a population boom, how do you have 6 fires that destroys thousands of buildings, just over 1,000 buildings? Well, no, it's over 2,000 buildings. How have these people in the space of 2 years built 2,000 buildings? How have they built 2,000 buildings that are worth the grand total of $1.2 billion. Like $1.2 billion of infrastructure is not the sort of infrastructure that's being built by primitive, gold-minded individuals. They're out there trying to mine the gold. They're not out there trying to build a metropolis of ancient Rome. When you're looking at these buildings, and they're like, oh, you know, the fires happened because it was all wooden structures. It wasn't wooden structures. This is in 1850. We can see it here. It's all bricked out. How are these fires happening? And how are they happening in such close succession to one another? You think if the first fire happened, you're like, fuck, you know, we made some mistakes with our urban planning. We made some mistakes. We shouldn't have had so many wooden buildings placed here and there. All right, let's rebuild. Let's go back to the drawing board. We're not gonna allow this to happen again. You know, 6 months after, boom, a second fire happens, but this time 300 buildings. How those 300 buildings were already there, I don't know. And you're like, fuck, how has this happened again? And then a month after, another fire. It's like, how are these people allowing these fires? Why have they not got, you know, a plan in place to prevent, a prevention plan in place to stop these fires from spreading or happening? 18 city blocks. How has a town that has only been experiencing a population boom for less than a year at this point got 18 city blocks worth of buildings worth $480 million? It's absolutely ludicrous to believe this. This was all here prior. This was an old world settlement. This was an old world town that's been known about for a very long time. That's the only way to explain how it's possible to build out infrastructure in place, brick buildings like this. And then what's happened is that there was a systematic planned attack to destroy San Francisco, to destroy the remnants of an old world, to destroy the evidence that something was there prior, because it didn't fit the narrative that they were going for, which was it's all because of the California gold mining boom. When evidently, you know, if this was in Sacramento, I'd believe it much more, but look how far away it is. You know, 200 plus miles away from where the gold mine was. Just absolutely atrocious. Doesn't make sense. Absolute bullshit to me. Yeah. And we're going to move on and have a look at this picture of San Francisco. So then again, look, these are the historical population figures. 1848, 1,000 people. By 1849, within a year, you know, they've got 24,000 more people. And then in order to be able to, like, have a city that can expand and scale at that rate and still have food, water, shelter for people, you know, I just don't see how that's possible, how it can expand at such a rate. And then we look at this picture here and we just see a fully built, so this is a time frame of, okay, so it's about 200,000 people here, which, okay, but this is a city for millions of people. And you're looking at this, and look at the advanced architecture that we're seeing. Again, we got a little bit of Antiquitech here popping out. We got a little bit here popping out. But all brick. I see so many brick buildings. Very interesting enough. This area over here, I believe, is where the 1915 Pan American World Fair exhibition took place. And we see there is something going on over there, almost as if the structures were already there in place. But we'll get to that later on. You know, these buildings, big mansion up here. These are the sort of buildings you'd expect to see, little wooden shacks, you know, little wooden shacks just sporadically placed around. But look at the infrastructure, the grid layout. You know, you got church here. You got like some sort of cathedral thing over here, like looks fucking like burnt out. And again, you know, they got the technology in 1878 to be taking photographs with this level of detail in. Where's all the construction photos for all these buildings? Like, some of these buildings are grand, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 floors of that building just there alone. You know, all of this for 200,000 people. Big building here. You know, look at the streets, churches. Look at this one, this church here, like that looks like that St. Basil's Cathedral, doesn't it, in Moscow. Look at the dome that we have going on there. Big sort of church here. We just see spires everywhere popping out, all brick buildings. Again, I've shown you at the beginning with their accessibility to produce bricks at that scale, at that time frame. How were they getting all of these bricks? The brick and mortar, how were they bringing them over to here when there wasn't, you know, when the availability for transportation wasn't there? The Panama Canal wasn't supposedly created then, so you couldn't have just sailed, or you couldn't have sailed from, you know, through America. You would have had to been on like rail freight. Big church here, big buildings over here. Look how far off it goes into the distance. This is a city for millions of people, where millions of people once lived. And this is even after all of the damage that was caused by those great fires. You know, so they did have to build up some of this, which they can do over like the space of 30, 40 years. But they can't do that. They can't do the whole thing. They can't do the whole thing. That's a farce. So that's San Francisco. If you enjoyed this presentation and feel inspired to support both yourself and this channel, then head over to primalalchemy.co.uk. Awaken your potential with the world's only visionary health brand. Discover our collection of tonic herbal elixirs, rare crystals, and holistic health technologies. All chosen and created with intention, so you can focus on the energy you bring into your life. Whether you're grounding yourself, seeking clarity, or elevating your routine, Primal Alchemy supports every step of your journey. Use code REBUS10 for 10% off all superfood elixirs at primalalchemy.co.uk.